podcast. I am your host, Sana. And listeners, today's conversation touches something deeply personal for many families: dyslexia. For too long, parents have been told to wait and see, while their children quietly struggle, often feeling unseen or misunderstood. But just imagine this: what if this learning differently isn't a deficit? It is simply a different pathway to brilliance. Listeners, my guest today, known as the Dyslexia Professor, is here to challenge the myths and share how mindful, interest driven, and brain based teaching can turn frustration into progress. Together, we are going to explore how shifting from generic worksheets to specific to general strategies, from repetition to relevance, can transform not just education but the confidence and identity of our young learners. So, this isn't about labeling, it's about unlocking potential. And listeners, meet my incredible guest, Russell Van Brocklen. So, Russell, welcome to the show, and I'm really honored to have you here with us.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely, Russell. Okay, so let's try to understand, Russell, a specific to general approach here. Um, and this is, I think, this is uniform across all different countries and education systems, that many classrooms, they still teach general concepts first and then narrow down. So why does the specific to general, it's kind of a reverse approach, work better for dyslexic learners? And how does it change the way the information is absorbed?
Well, what you need to understand is when somebody comes to you in the field of dyslexia and they say they have something that's new from Dr. Orton's multisensory structured language approach, which is what all the wealthy private schools in the Northeast United States use. This is
Mm-hmm.
what Bill Gates would use if he had a dyslexic grandchild.
Okay.
You have to base it on the best current science. So I'm just going to direct people to a book called Overcoming Dyslexia by Yale University. Again, it's Overcoming Dyslexia, published by Yale University. Second edition, page 78, figure 23. Again, that's page 78, figure 23. What you're going to notice there is the back part of the normal brain has massive neuroactivity. The dyslectic brain has virtually none. But the front part of the dyslectic brain is approximately 2.5 times overactive. Now, this is going to be kind of a long answer because it took me, 15 years to get here. All right.
Yeah.
So the front part of the brain that's 2.5 times overactive deals with two areas according to Yale: articulation followed by word analysis. So again, articulation followed by word analysis.
Mm.
So what I initially did is I took 16 to 18-year-olds who were highly motivated, highly intelligent, excellent family support, college bound dyslexic students. They were writing as if they were 12 or 13-year-olds. So then what I did is I found, speaking to top dyslexic professors, is that as a general rule, they were not very good compared to their eventual peers, kindergarten through college, but they excelled once they hit graduate school. So the instrument I used to solve this student's problems, and this was what was funded by the New York State Senate for a multi-year study, is I chose the Graduate Records Exam Analytical Writing Assessment. This is the standard test for going into most graduate programs in the United States. Please note the Graduate Records Exam Analytical Writing Assessment. Analytical, front part of the dyslexic brain is 2.5 times overactive. Articulation, analytical, same thing. So what I did is we had these, you know, the ideal students, highly motivated, highly intelligent, dyslexic 16, 18-year-olds. They entered a public school in New York State one class period a day for the school year, about 180 sessions. They increased their writing from that of a 12 to 13-year-old to that of a 21-year-old, a college graduate or just about to be college graduates. Okay. They're
Mhm.
then they what that costs New York State less than $900 per student. Then they went on to college, all graduated, no accommodations, grade point averages of 2.5 to 3.6. How did that compare to the best dyslexic college in the world at the time, Landmark College? It
Mhm.
was 3x as effective for less than one hundredth of the cost, and for less than 1/25th of the effort expended. All right. Now, then I presented that in New York City at a major dyslexia conference in 2006. Problem when we tried to move this over to typical students, this was not going to work. So I had to come up with a brand new model. First thing is we did is we went back to articulation followed by word analysis, and we flipped that over to word analysis
Mhm.
followed by articulation. So word analysis first, then articulation. So let me give you an example of how that works. Have you ever worked with a dyslexic child before in elementary school who was writing randomly placed misspelled words? Do you have any experience with that at all?
I'm afraid not, Russell, but yes, I have had some projects back in school where we had visited some NGOs, government-run NGOs, supporting dyslexic, children in there. So yes.
Okay. So I'm just going to give you my standard reaction, and it doesn't matter what language you're teaching this in.
Mhm.
This is what parents need to understand. The
Mhm.
one caveat I had to come up with is whatever language the child's being taught in, I
Mhm.
expect that they can speak that language uh clearly. Okay.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if the parents can speak well, generally, unless there's some underlying issue, the child is going to speak that language well, whatever you're teaching, whatever language you're teaching them in. Here's just what I standardly present at dyslexia conferences.
Mhm.
The student's name is Sarah. She's 10 years old and she's reading and writing as if she's 5. Okay.
Mhm.
Her
Mhm.
favorite thing in the world is swimming. She likes going to the pool. She's on the swim team. She does everything she can to get in the water. All right. So what
Mhm.
we do is we have the students type, not handwrite, not no iPad, no iPhone. It has to be on a real computer with a real keyboard, usually a laptop. We have parents type out hero plus sign, what are we talking about? We replace hero with Sarah. Sarah plus sign, what are we talking about? Sarah plus sign swimming. See how we got there?
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we got Sarah plus sign swimming. We
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
a word to replace the plus sign. So now
Yeah.
I'm going to try to fool you. All right. When I do this at major dyslexia conferences, I fool most of the special ed and reading teachers. All
Okay.
right. It's very simple what I'm asking. You follow it exactly, you'll be fine. You don't follow it exactly, you're going to be wrong. Do you think I'm going to be able to fool you?
Let's see. Let's see this up.
Okay.
Mhm.
Here's my question. We got Sarah plus sign swimming. We need to replace the plus sign with a word. Here's my question. Does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
Mm. Mhm. Um, like?
Okay, good. Now put that into the sentence. What's the three-word sentence? You're doing great so far.
Para like swimming. So I repeat.
You know, you're one of the very few people that got that correct
Oh
because
my.
that's
Okay.
exactly what Sarah would do. What most people do is they would add the S and complete the sentence Sarah likes swimming. All right, because that's just
Ah.
what they're used to. No, you did it
Yeah.
correctly. Everybody else does it wrong. So just so parents understand, if I asked you this, most likely you would have said likes and then just
Like exactly. Yeah.
replace the plus sign, and we have a proper sentence. Sarah likes
Mm,
swimming.
exactly.
But
Yeah.
then I tell people that's not what I asked. You got it correct. Sarah would say like because that's what I asked her that she'd put it up
Exactly.
in the sentence. Sarah likes swimming, but she doesn't know how to add the S.
Yes.
Adding the S with an Orton Gillingham multi-sensory structured language approach would take you weeks to learn, and it's incredibly complicated. All
Wow.
right. We're going to show you how to fix this much simpler. What
Okay.
we do, again, this is the assuming that Sarah speaks the language properly. We
Mhm.
ask Sarah to read what she wrote out loud. Sarah likes swimming. Then I would ask Sarah, does that sound generally correct? And she's going to say, no. And I would say, Sarah, fix it. Sarah likes swimming.
Mm.
Now, we have her then go and do that for 10 likes and 10 dislikes for 20 sentences until it's done perfectly. And that means she might have to repeat it, not 20 sentences. It might be 200 sentences to get there. It doesn't matter. When
Mm.
she gets that done, then we're going to go on to because reason one. Now, again, going back to Yale science, a like and dislike is a form of word analysis.
Mm.
Anything after the word because is articulation. So again, like and dislike is a form of word analysis. Reason one, reason two, reason three. Anything after because is articulation, going back to the science of the overactive front part of the dyslexic brain. Key point that you understand, people understand that. Now,
Mhm.
because Sarah likes swimming because it's fun. All right. Now, you're going to see now he's a lot of misspelled words, horrifically misspelled words. I just showed you how to correct the grammar
Yes.
to get rid of the really horrific grammar mistakes, but the spelling is going to be atrocious. Here's how we fix that. Sarah, you tell Sarah before she puts the period down, she can ask you any question. But once she puts the period down, if she makes a mistake, she has to retype the entire sentence. So
Mm.
before the period she put down, she spelled fun wrong. She can ask, "Did I spell fun wrong?" And you can say, "Yes, you did." You could type out how to spell fun. All right. Why are
Mhm.
we doing the copying? Dr. Professor James Collins, that's one of the 3 default writing strategies of copying, visualization, and narrative. The book is Strategies for Struggling Writers, $1.5 million in funding from the U.S. Education Department to write it.
Mhm.
All right, so she just has to retype fun, but most kids will just drop the period. Now, if there's a spelling mistake or a major, and I mean major grammatical mistake, then she has to retype the entire sentence. In order to make this easier on the child, what you do is you can tell them 2 things. You made 2 mistakes. The first one is you made a silly mistake or a silly error. A silly mistake or a silly error. Least offensive terms I've ever come up with. So now Sarah's going to have to retype and get it correct. She usually doesn't. Normally takes 3 to 13 times. And what you're going to find is that she keeps making the same mistakes, the same spelling mistakes. She's going to concentrate harder and harder. Up
Yeah.
around 10 to 12, you might even see sweat starting coming down her forehead.
Yeah. Mm.
S- She is focusing so intensely hard on this
Mm.
that, it is just really causing her to focus at such a massively deep level, and that's where the magic happens. At some point, she'll get it correct, all right? And then she has to get it correct with 10 likes and 10 dislikes. If she makes a mistake, start over until everything's correct, all right?
Mhm.
Then we're gonna go reason 1 and reason 2, connect it with a glue word and then reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3.
Okay.
Now, this here's the other thing compared to Orton Gillingham. With Orton Gillingham, the older the child is, the longer it's gonna take because they have to relearn everything and plus what they're supposed to be learning
Mhm.
now.
Yeah.
With my approach, it's the exact opposite. The older the child is, normally the faster that they will learn. So a 5th grader, a 10-year-old will learn much faster than an 8-year-old. So this could
Mm.
take a parent or a teacher a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Doesn't matter because what I just told you was how to take a child from writing like a 5-year-old to writing like an older 7-year-old or a young 8-year-old.
Mm.
Multiple year improvement with just that. Here's the other important thing. If they can write it, they can read it. Think about that. If they can write the word, they can read the word. No more randomly placed misspelled words for writing. All right, so that is step 3. word analysis followed by articulation. But when you're trying to get typical students to do this, they will not do the work typically. I get that all the time. I can hear parents now, my child won't do the work. Or a teacher will say, oh, I'm exasperated. My child won't do the assigned work. Exactly. Because you're outside their speciality. So what we do to find their speciality, that is their area of extreme interest and ability. And what you're going to find with most dyslexics is that we are very narrowly focused. We are academic specialists, not generalists. So instead of picking out a book that's assigned by the school, where you're right, unless you have a very motivated child, this doesn't work. You ask them, it's a Saturday morning, they can do whatever they want. What would it be? That's their speciality. It's their area of extreme interest and ability. Then what I do is I go to audible.com and I find a book, an audio book that they really like, okay? And then you find that, and then you can go and get a printed book. Doesn't always work the other way around. They have to like the narrator. Then what I do is I have them follow along with their finger while listening to the audiobook while trying to answer a question. So, for example, for young girls, it's almost always Harry Potter, and they almost always pick Hermione, and it's a very painful reason. They say, "Well, I don't wanna be stupid anymore," and Hermione's not stupid. It's a very painful area. So what we do is we pick a chapter, and I have them go through the entire chapter. What does Hermione like? What does Hermione dislike? What does Hermione want to do? All right. They come across a word they don't absolutely know. I have them circle the word. I have them go to Merriam Webster's online dictionary or Oxford English online dictionary, whatever good one you want. You find the definition of the word that they like. They type out their word, then they find the definition they like, and they type out the definition. Now, for you, how many times do you have to type out a word and its definition until you permanently remember it? What do you think?
Mm, twice or thrice, not more than that. And I write for the first time. Let's say I'm learning a new word. I write it for the first time. I write the meaning, and then I write a sentence which uses that word. Yeah, so twice, maximum twice. Yeah.
Okay. Well, with the dyslexic, it might be 5 or 10 or even 20 times. I don't know. They're on that chapter until they go through it and they don't need any more assistance from the audiobook. And they might be going through that chapter dozens and dozens of times. Remember, doesn't really matter. The child can sit there for doing this again, again, and again
Mm-hmm.
until they can finally read the chapter. And I hear this from parents all the time. My child won't do the work. Well, in this case, they will because this is their speciality. You just don't get Harry Potter book and give it to a kid. You have to find out their speciality. I'm just saying for the vast majority of these kids, that is what they're the most interested in. And for girls, they typically pick Hermione for the reason I told you before. So then we get done with the first chapter. Usually with whatever book you pick, by the end of chapter 4 or 5, they're essentially reading that book. And eventually we move up to, let's say, a 1,000-page book like Walt Disney, The Triumph of the American Imagination. And that's a 1,000-page book meant for 17-year-olds. And I routinely give that to 10-year-olds, and it takes them about 2 years to learn to read it. And I can hear parents saying now, wow, that's a long time. Well, just so you know, if you're in the United States, in New York City, the Upper East Side, the wealthiest of wealthy places in the United States, their their school there is called the Windward School. Once a child is 9 years old, I'm just giving you an example. At 9 years old, because that gets much more expensive typically, they can take the child in, and they have a 98% success rate of sending the child back to their school. 4 to 5 years full time, that's 75,000 a year. So what I'm showing you here is much more efficient. All right, and remember, they do the work because you're in their speciality. Now, we have to fill in the second point. That second point is, remember, the dyslexic rate is completely different according to Yale. The back part of the typical brain is massive neural activity, not much going on in front. The dyslexic brain has massive activity, 2.5 times up front, almost nothing going in back. Here's where this conflicts with the school. Schools teach as a general rule from the general to the specific. So I'm just going to give you an American example. Here's what we would give a 13-year-old in America.
Mhm.
What effect did Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech have in the 1960s American Civil Rights Movement? Or
Mhm.
in India, what effect did Mahatma Gandhi's
Yeah.
nonviolent protest have in freeing India from the UK?
Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
Now, you ask that to a gen ed kid, they'll just run with it. You ask that to a dyslexic, you're asking them to grab fog. There's just nothing to grab onto. Why? If you ask a dyslexic, do you have ideas in your speciality, your area of extreme interest and ability, flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. Okay. Once they say yes, there's just nothing to grab onto. We have to accommodate that. How do we accommodate that? We ask from a specific to the general. So we might ask what personally compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous speech, or what personally compelled Mahatma Gandhi to want to free India from the rule of England. All right. We can just go to their biographies and we can answer that specific question, which will then lead to a natural second question. Then that will lead to a natural third question. What we are doing is we're forcing our brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. So what we do is we're forcing our brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Now, does this mean this model, using a kid's speciality, is their area of extreme interest and ability, teaching from the specific to the general, then word analysis followed by articulation? Does that mean we have to do this throughout the kid's education? No, we have to do that for what I like to call an intervention period, where this is how they're learning until their reading and writing skills are brought up to grade level. Preferably, I prefer to go beyond grade level because learning then becomes walking down the hill instead of trying to climb up a mountain. All
Mhm.
right, but you have to have that intervention period. Now, once the intervention period is over, then you do need to sit the dyslexic child down and very firmly say, now that you can read and write at grade level, you are expected to go through and you will be taught general to the specific. We will work with you how to translate that to specific to the general. If you can go to the teacher and ask for assignments that are specific to the general, it's not that hard. Take what they're taught, dump it into artificial intelligence, choose your model. How do I modify this to specific to the general? Most teachers will be accommodative to that level, but the dyslexic child will need to go and let's say for a standard English class or whatever you're using for your language class. Okay. There are all these books that they're not going to be interested in. Tough. They have to get used to doing that, and that becomes with a very firm hand from the parents and the teachers, but you can only expect a dyslexic child to do this after you've brought their reading and writing to grade level.
Mm. Wow. Russell, just tell me one thing. So, uh, why I mean, what are some subtle cues, like things we might overlook that actually tell us how a child is processing information? Because what I've understood is mindfulness often begins with awareness. And when it comes to dyslexic learners, we as parents or teachers, we have to become more aware of individual learning patterns, rather than the standard approach, the general approach. So, what do you think about this?
Well, if you're asking, like, how do we find out?
Mm.
Typically, what you're going to see is dyslexia is expressed in the kid can't read and their spelling and their writing look like randomly placed misspelled words to some effect. Like, literally the kids in 1st grade, and you're trying to teach them to spell words, and then you teach them like, they do well on a spelling test, and then 3 classes later, they can't remember any of the words. Alright, this dyslexia expresses itself as a reading and writing disorder. That's not actually what it is. Lack of organization in the front part of the brain is the primary cause. And by fixing that, the rest of it tends to self-correct. Like in the original study I was telling you about, the New York State funded, the students' spelling and grammar went from absolutely atrocious to
Mhm.
clean at the graduate level, and the teacher spent almost no time on it. It auto-corrected.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So you just, if you're noticing reading and writing is a real problem, then you ask that question and you find out the speciality. Do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They say yes. That's AD, as attention deficit disorder, comma, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or mild dyslexia. All right.
Mhm.
Run them through the same process I just described. Do an intervention period, get their reading and writing up to grade level, and then they'll be fine.
Yeah. Wonderful. So Russell, in the interest of the time, so if our listeners, they would like to connect with you and explore more about the work that you are doing for dyslexia education, and this beautiful adoption blending of mindfulness into education, what would be the best way?
Very easily just go to dyslexia classes, that's plural with an S, dyslexiaclasses.com, and then you're going to see a button there that says download free report. Just hit that button and it's going to ask you a few simple questions, and then we'll send you a document, the 3 reasons your child's having trouble in school due to dyslexia and how to get past it. And it'll also set up to a 30-minute discussion with me over Zoom, where I can talk to your child directly. Of course, parents are there. Ask them a couple of questions, show them how to find out their specialty, find out their book, their audio book, and then if I ask the child, "Is this how you would like to learn to overcome your learning concerns?" If I don't get a yes, then I'm not the person for you. The vast majority of time, it's the case. And then I just discuss with parents how we give them support every week to overcome their child's learning concerns. And we discuss ways to make it, affordable option for them to go and teach their child themselves and just to get the problem solved.
That is really, really clear, and I'll make sure to have all the links, the details in the show notes. And Russell, thank you so much, because this was such an interactive way of learning to understand that learning isn't about fitting into a mold. It is about meeting each mind where it is, and giving it the tools to thrive. And I am not afraid to say that dyslexia isn't a roadblock. It is an invitation to teach and learn differently, beautifully, and mindfully. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
So, to all the listeners, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Mindful Living podcast. Until next time, stay mindful, stay curious, and keep believing in the power of every learner's story. Thank you.